If you so much as mention his name, you'll be shown the door. That's how one well-placed insider now describes Prince William's stance on his brother. And yes, it hardened right after the Duke of Sussex pulled off the meeting many thought was impossible, a 55-minute, camera-free tea with the king at Clarence House. One quiet hour, no leaks, 7 careful words afterwards, his great, thank you, and suddenly the family chessboard looks different. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Charles may be open to a careful thaw, why William is doubling down, what Harry's endgame actually is, and the 3 small tells that will show you where this story goes next. Start with the part that surprised even seasoned royal watchers, Harry's discipline. Over the past year he's rebuilt his playbook. Fewer Hollywood flourishes, more military neatness. A streamlined team with clear lanes for him and for Meghan. A return to the British charities that once defined his public value. Short, tightly packed UK trips. Schedules shared just enough to prevent collisions. And the most important change of all, he stopped narrating private rooms. The reward for that restraint was real. With the king in London for treatment, a window opened. Harry stayed close, kept his phone on, and when the call came he was 5 miles away, not 5,000. The tea happened. Asked later how his father was, he offered a single harmless line. No hints, no color, no he said, I said. For a family that prizes silence as currency, that was gold. So why, after a week that looked like progress, is William said to be back to red line mode? 2 reasons, one constitutional and one human. Constitution first. The heir cannot freelance foreign policy, or ignore security advice for the sake of optics. For 2 years William has carried the UK's voice on Ukraine, visits to troops in Estonia and Poland, meetings with refugees, funding drives at home. Reports say he wanted to go to Ukraine, the answer was no. Not because he doesn't care, because the system around a sovereign in waiting says not you. Then his younger brother appeared in Kiev under the Invictus banner, meeting wounded service members, drawing cameras and donors to rehabilitation work that truly matters. On merit, it was worthy. On optics, it hurt. We've seen this movie before. Harry flew to Afghanistan, William was held back. The arithmetic hasn't changed. Knowing that doesn't make it sting less. Now the human part. People close to William have watched him move through all the stages: shock, anger, indifference. Indifference was healthy. It kept him centered on family, duty, and the slow, necessary work that never makes front pages. Then last week reset the temperature. Harry back in London. Harry back at Clarence House. Harry back in the subject lines of emails. The non-person, filed to the far corner of the mind re-entered the room. That's why you hear the line, say his name and leave, and why you shouldn't read it as theatrical rage. It's a boundary. Boundaries are how the next king keeps the institution from blurring. If you want proof that Kensington intended to shrink the drama, look at Monday's pivot. Catherine joined William at the Women's Institute in Sunningdale, an engagement he'd initially planned to do alone as a quiet salute to the late Queen's 8 decades with the WI. Together they poured tea, listened, laughed, and let the room do what it always does at its best, turn a village hall into the heart of the nation. A matched pair in frame leaves far less air for rumor. Then Harry counter-programmed with a headline-friendly pledge, £1.1 million for children in need. Was it crass to cite the amount? Some said so. Effective? Completely. Numbers travel. Thread through all this the background hum that older viewers recognize. The King's Diary has been consistently full despite treatment, and commentators have noticed. You may have seen reports suggesting Charles is irritated with his heirs' pace, others say that's overblown. Either way, last week's 4-day sprint by the Waleses, school halls, community rooms, small charities, was not an accident. It was a reminder that the Crown's credibility is earned in low rooms, not high ones, and that the people who will carry most of the visible load for the next 30 years are already doing it. What, then, is Harry actually after? Not a desk at Buckingham Palace and not a half-in, half-out job description the palace already rejected. People in his orbit say he wants something far simpler and far harder. A public olive branch from his father. A line that asks the nation to make room for the prodigal son. Think of the late Queen's message inviting Britons to accept Camilla as Queen Consort. A sentence like that would not restore titles or police protection, but it would sand down the edges of public opinion and give Harry a better runway for short, productive UK visits. William, predictably, opposes any such move, because it tightens bolts he will inherit. A king's blessing today becomes a king's problem tomorrow. That's not bitterness, that's structural caution. And here's a loop you should keep open in your mind. The half-in, half-out question has never been solved. The palace line is unchanged. You cannot be a working royal and run a commercial operation in parallel. That's why Harry's current stance matters. He isn't asking for a hybrid job. He's building something else, brief, busy visits on his own dime and his own security, done with military timing, then straight back to California. For causes like Invictus, that model works. It raises money, boosts morale, and keeps the cameras honest, fewer red carpets, more rehab wards. All of which leaves us with three realities that won't budge in the short term. First, discretion is the price of any real thaw. If even one detail of the Clarence house tea leaks, the ladder he just built is kicked away. Second, the part-time royal doesn't exist, however neatly it would please everyone to invent it. Cooperation is possible, a new status is not. Third, the heir's veto on blending lines stays in force. William can't stop his father seeing his son. He can, and will, stop the institution from inviting his brother back into the core model where public trust funds every move. There's a line doing the rounds that sounds brutal until you examine it closely. William wants the Sussexes out in the permanent sense. Translate that to institutional English and you get something more measured. No official role, no shared platform, no photo ops that imply co-management of the brand. That's not vengeance, it's governance. And it's precisely the clarity older audiences tend to respect. You can forgive in private without erasing in public. You can serve the nation and still protect the system that allows you to serve at all. Where does that leave Charles? In the only place a modern monarch can live, process over performance. A father can open a door without issuing a proclamation. A sovereign can host, convene, and listen without taking sides in a feud. You could even argue, and many do, that a touch of competition from the younger son spurs the heir's office to up its game with more visible, small-scale work. That kind of quiet pressure is not always comfortable, but it's often useful. Watch for these tells next. If there's a second quiet meeting between father and son within the next month, the no-leak pact is holding. If palace language about the Duke of Sussex stays neutral and dry, no adjectives, no asides, that signals a plan for professional coexistence, nothing more. If William and Catherine's diary continues to swell with modest, well-covered engagements, that's how you hold the centre. And if a single juicy detail of the tea at Clarence House finds its way into print, assume everything snaps back to cold storage. A word, too, about the Ukraine optics. Don't fall for the lazy action man versus cautious heir frame. One powerful image cannot carry a decade of duty. Outcomes are slow. A new grant approved for a veterans clinic. A prosthetics program expanded in a region that needs it. A tired public reminded that fatigue is not policy. On that axis, both brothers can help, one by keeping the cause vivid at the edge of a war zone, the other by keeping the nation engaged at home. If they can't coordinate, the work can still add up. So yes, The week belonged to a photograph and a rumor. A younger son in a capital his brother could not visit. A closed door opening for 55 minutes. A last-minute joint appearance that calmed a headline. Look past the noise and the picture complicates. Two men raised for different roles are doing what those roles now allow. The crown survives not by winning arguments, but by refusing to become one. Here's the uncomfortable truth that grown-ups recognize. Reconciliation in headlines takes a snap. Reconciliation in institutions takes silence, repetition, and respect for rules no one applauds. Harry has finally done the hardest easy thing. He kept a private room private. The king did the most human royal thing. He made time. William did the job only he can do. He kept the guardrails where they belong. If each man can hold that line, a year from now this story will be dull in the best sense. Predictable, workable, unexciting. If anyone breaks it for a moment of heat, we go back to zero. Tell me where you land. Should the king offer a public olive branch? Or would that undercut the discipline that keeps the crown steady? And if you value royal coverage that treats you like an adult, less noise, more meaning, tap like and subscribe. We'll be here for the next quiet turn of the page.